And the BET award goes to Lil Baby.
He has 4 #1 albums, over 15 billion streams, a Grammy, and no major label owns him outright. Instead, he runs an imprint called Glass Window Entertainment, and the deal he cut to get there is one of the most underrated power moves in modern hip-hop. So how did a kid who dropped out in 9th grade and did 2 years in prison end up with a label deal that artists with 20 years in the game still can't get? The answer is hidden inside one phone call from 2017. In 2014, Dominique Jones was 20 years old sitting in a Georgia prison. He had dropped out of Booker T. Washington High School in the 9th grade. By the time he turned 18, he had been arrested for possession with intent to sell, marijuana possession, and eventually the charge that put him away for 2 years. When he got out in 2016, he had no plan, no music career, no income. What he did have was a friend group that hung around a recording studio in West Atlanta. The studio belonged to a label called Quality Control, and the man running Quality Control was about to change his life. Quality Control was started in 2013 by 2 men, Pierre Thomas, who owned the studio, and Kevin Lee, known as Coach K, who had spent years managing rappers like Jeezy and Gucci Mane. They had invested $1 million and 1 full year into building the headquarters in West Atlanta, the 4 recording studios under one roof. Coach K spotted Lil Baby in the studio, not rapping, just hanging around. But Coach saw something. He told Baby, "You've got the swag, the lingo, the respect of the city, you should rap." Baby said no, he didn't want to be a rapper, he wanted to make street money. So Coach made him an offer almost no label boss makes. He told Baby, "I'll pay you to rap, just try it. If it doesn't work, you walk away." In April 2017, Lil Baby dropped his first mixtape, Perfect Timing. By August, he had dropped a second one. By October, a third. By December, a fourth. 4 mixtapes in 8 months. And then came the breakout, May 2018. His debut album, Harder Than Ever, hit #3 on the Billboard 200. The single Yes Indeed with Drake landed in the Hot 100 top 10. Then October 2018, his joint mixtape with Gunna, Drip Harder, dropped the song Drip Too Hard, which would eventually go diamond. That's 10 million units in the United States alone. By 2020, his second album, My Turn, sat on top of the Billboard 200 for 5 weeks. It became the best-selling album of the entire year. But here's where it gets interesting. While Lil Baby was breaking records, the label that signed him was making most of the money, and he knew it. To understand why Lil Baby's deal matters, you have to understand how a record contract actually works. Most artists, when they sign to a major label, give up almost everything. The label pays them in advance, sometimes a few $100,000, sometimes a few million, and in exchange, the label owns the master recordings forever. Owning the masters means owning the music itself. Every time a song streams, the master owner gets paid. Every time it's licensed for a film, a commercial, a video game, the master owner gets paid. The artist gets a small royalty, the label keeps the rest. On a standard major label deal, the artist takes home around 15 to 20%. The label takes the rest, and they own the catalog permanently. That's why old hits keep generating millions for record companies long after the artist stops touring. Now look at what Lil Baby did. In 2017, before he was famous, he started his own imprint. He called it 4 Pockets Full. 4PF. It was tiny, it had no distribution, it had no real artists, but it had one thing, a name on paper. By 2020, his label 4PF had a deal with Virgin Music to release his protege Rilo Rodriguez. It wasn't a major label deal, it was an imprint deal, meaning Baby owned the company and Virgin handled the distribution. Here's the difference. A major deal, the label owns you. An imprint deal, you own the label and the major just helps you ship the music. The artist keeps the masters. The artist signs other artists. The artist runs the business. In August 2023, Lil Baby leveled up. He shut down 4PF and rebranded the whole thing as Glass Window Entertainment. And this time, he didn't sign with Virgin. He signed an imprint deal with 2 of the biggest names in music, Capitol Music Group and Motown Records. The terms were never fully disclosed publicly, but here's what we do know. Variety reported it as a multi-million-dollar deal. The CEO of Capitol Music Group, Michelle Jubilerer, called it a partnership. not a signing. Lil Baby kept the title of founder and CEO of Glass Window. The major just provides distribution, marketing muscle, and global reach. In an industry where artists like Prince literally wrote the word slave on their face to protest record contracts, Lil Baby walked into a major and walked out with his name still on the door. And the math on this is wild. According to industry reporting, in 2022 alone, Lil Baby pulled 4.3 billion on-demand streams in the United States. That's 2.97 million album equivalent units. His track In a Minute peaked at number 14 on the Hot 100 that year. He didn't even release a full studio album in 2022 until October. He generated those numbers from his back catalog. Now think about what that means for his imprint. Every artist Glass Window signs from now on, Rilo Rodriguez, 42 Doug, future signees, Lil Baby owns a piece of the upside. He's not just an artist anymore. He's a label boss with major distribution. And to understand how rare this is, look at what other rappers have tried. Jay-Z built Rock Nation, Diddy built Bad Boy, Birdman built Cash Money. All three of them eventually ended up in lawsuits, contract disputes, or accusations of stealing from their own artists. Building a label and keeping artists happy at the same time is one of the hardest things in the music business. But there's another model, the model where the artist becomes the label themselves. Tyler, the Creator, started Odd Future and turned it into a multi-million-dollar streetwear and music empire. Drake quietly built OVO Sound in partnership with Warner Music, holding on to his masters in a way most major label artists never do. And Frank Ocean famously fulfilled his Def Jam contract with one album, then went fully independent and released Blonde under his own LLC, pocketing nearly all the profits himself. Lil Baby is borrowing pieces from each of these blueprints. From Drake, he borrowed the imprint partnership model. From Tyler, he borrowed the artist as CEO posture. From Frank Ocean, he borrowed the long game patience, knowing that every year he stays active, his catalog and his imprint get more valuable, regardless of what the major label is doing. The Glass Window deal also gives him something most rappers never have, a real second income stream. As a signed artist, you make money from your own albums. As an imprint owner, you also make money from every other artist on your label. Even if you stop releasing music tomorrow, the imprint keeps generating revenue. But here's where the story gets sharper. To understand why Lil Baby's deal is so unusual, you have to look at what happened to his original label. In February 2023, Quality Control, the label that discovered Lil Baby, was sold. The buyer was Hybe America, the US arm of the Korean entertainment giant behind BTS. The price tag, $320 million in cash and stock, $250 million in cash, $50 million in Hybe stock. Coach K and P walked away with one of the biggest paydays in independent hip-hop history. Now here's the question almost nobody asks. What did Lil Baby get from that sale? If Lil Baby was a regular signed artist, the answer would be nothing. Zero. The label gets sold, the executives cash out, and the artist keeps making music under new ownership without seeing a dime of the sale. But Lil Baby had been quietly building Glass Window for years before the sale happened. He had his own imprint, his own roster, his own JV partnership with Motown directly, separate from Quality Control's deal with the same parent company. Translation: when Hybe bought Quality Control, they didn't buy Lil Baby's label, they bought the company that signed him, but his imprint, his masters from Glass Window forward, his ownership stake in the artists he develops, those stayed with him. This is the unconventional move that almost no rapper at his level executes correctly. Most artists either stay fully signed and lose ownership when the label sells, or they go fully independent and lose access to major distribution. Lil Baby split the difference. He stayed in the system long enough to use it. He built his name on Quality Control's machine. Then, while still riding that wave, he set up a parallel company that the system couldn't touch. Compare this to Young Thug, who told The Breakfast Club that Pierre Thomas, the CEO of Quality Control, owns 100% of Lil Baby's early masters. That's a claim Lil Baby has never confirmed or denied publicly. But even if it's true, it only applies to the catalog from before Glass Window. Everything from 2023 forward, every Glass Window release, every artist he signs, every new master he creates under his own imprint, that's his. And there's a second layer to this nobody talks about. When High bought quality control, they paid based on the value of the existing catalog. They paid for what Migos already created, what Lil Yachty already created, what Lil Baby already created up to that point, but they didn't pay for what Lil Baby would create in the future under Glass Window, because future Glass Window output isn't part of the quality control transaction. So in effect, Lil Baby's most valuable years as a creator, the years from 2023 onward, when he's a more mature artist with a bigger global audience, those years are operating outside of the Hive acquisition. The deal that made Coach K and P rich didn't capture the upside of Lil Baby's biggest era. That's not an accident, that's planning. But none of this means Lil Baby has it all figured out. The truth is, his deal still depends on the major label system to function. Glass Window doesn't have its own warehouse. It doesn't have its own radio promotion team. It doesn't have international distribution. Capitol and Motown do. Without them, Glass Window is just a logo on a contract. There's also the catalog problem. Whatever percentage Lil Baby actually owns of his pre-2023 music, and the public numbers have never been confirmed, he doesn't fully control his most streamed era. The albums that built his name, the songs that get played the most, those rights live somewhere else. And there's the bigger structural risk. The major label distribution model could change overnight. Streaming royalty rates could collapse. A new TikTok era artist could come up using nothing but a phone and a DistroKid account, making the entire imprint structure look outdated. There's also the harder, quieter risk. Glass Window is essentially a one-man brand. If something happens to Lil Baby, legal trouble, creative burnout, a falling out with Capitol, the whole imprint loses its anchor overnight. He hasn't yet built a second platinum tier artist on the roster. Rilo Rodriguez is talented, but he hasn't broken through to the same commercial level. Until Glass Window has at least one other major hitmaker, the entire business depends on Lil Baby's personal output. And then there's the cultural shift hip-hop is going through right now. The biggest streaming moments of the last 2 years haven't come from major label artists at all. They've come from kids on TikTok, viral one-off songs, and AI-generated tracks that rack up millions of streams without any label structure behind them. Lil Baby's Glass Window deal is built for the old streaming economy. The next economy might not need imprint deals at all. So here's what Lil Baby actually built. Not a perfect system, not full independence, but something rarer than either: leverage. He has the brand of a major label artist, the ownership of an indie, the distribution of a global giant, and the freedom to walk if any one of those three breaks down. That's the deal nobody talks about when they talk about Lil Baby. Forget the streams, forget the platinum plaques. The real flex is the paper he signed in 2023. Because in an industry built on owning artists, Lil Baby figured out how to own a piece of the industry back.